3, 2, 1. Boom, what's up everyone? Welcome to Simulation. We have a very exciting episode today talking about Moonshot Entrepreneurship, and we have Lance Cassidy and Matt Bell joining us. Thank you for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, greatly appreciate it. And so we are building DX Labs over the last 6 years, and DX Labs is really exciting innovation tank for Moonshot Entrepreneurship. Yeah. And this is really important. This is coming at like a crucial time for society to really be actualizing these incredibly powerful ideas for building a bright future. So it's exciting stuff to have you guys on the show to talk about this.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us about this. Okay, we got Moonshot Entrepreneurship is something that you guys care about. Let's talk about why you care about it, and then we'll talk about, DX Labs, how that's amplifying it.
Yeah, I think it's just, over the years, worked like 40 or 50 startups and just started to see a pattern, of kind of like short-term thinking and the impact of that, on the company, on the mission, and just thought, I think we can be more intentional about, planning for the future and identifying what that moonshot is really early on, so that you have a better chance of actually making it happen. Yeah, it's like, you think about lean startup methodologies and kind of like iterative thinking, which is the gospel of Silicon Valley. And there's obviously many benefits to this type of thinking, but I think one of the byproducts is sometimes you can kind of be short-sighted. And I think we've seen over the years, it's like the companies that take the time to really hone their moonshot and make sure it's simple, it's visual, it's easy to explain. A lot of the great things that entrepreneurs like Elon Musk do very well, that they have an easier time kind of like onboarding talent, getting investors, all that great stuff, and then making sure whatever they're doing in the short term is like aligned with that long-term vision.
Yep.
I think it's extremely, you brought up a good point, like it's extremely dangerous to keep on playing into this short-term mentality. And there's certain aspects that are kind of coming out, cultural aspects that sort of reinforce this short-term, like I gotta, get my sort of immediate gratification.
Yep.
And these products that kind of play into that. And that's a short-viewed sort of way of planning for the future. I think that you create unintended consequences when you do that, and I think the key is to be extremely intentional, like you were saying, with the consequences, not just like the vision that you have, but what is that future going to look like, and given the set of sort of circumstances we have now and that we can project into the future, can we make as accurate as possible? It doesn't have to be perfect, but view of what that world is and what kind of world we want to create is.
Yeah, I like how you both put it into context of this short term. It's a very feels, just the words that come to mind are the attention economy for that short term.
Oh,
yeah.
And just that compared to this long term moonshot, what's your vision for the future? How are you going to sell that? How is it tangible? How are your short term goals to get there? Just that mentality versus the attention economy are just two completely different.
And that's your consciousness, like whatever you're focused on, that's where you're spending all your energy.
Yes.
And it's like, where do I put my energy? And I think that's something that we're just, maybe because of the economics don't work out necessarily in the short term, because we're not thinking long term, we're like encouraging that. So there's a feedback effect there that we can maybe help manage thinking more long term.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of taking a more holistic definition of success. And I think when you're looking 5 to 10 years out, it kind of creates this space to think bigger. And science fiction is one of the tools that we use, and narrative, to explain what's that social impact going to look like, and is that something that we want? Is that something that's desirable? And we think like the more we can kind of use these simulators, we can think through, these sorts of things, and hopefully the attention economy and kind of, selling our eyeballs, for marketing. You can kind of like, it's kind of crazy how you can take a few constraints and sort of, project them to their logical ends. And you can make, I don't want to say predictions, but you can definitely create visions where you're more intentional about making it happen.
Yeah.
You don't end up with, Facebook getting audited by Congress, kind of situations. But,
What you just started painting there is what I think we should start. Let's start highlighting.
Sure.
So the first thing that that I really like in what you guys are up to is your multidisciplinary approach to things. Mm-hmm. So we have this good graphic that has like 6 different boxes on it, and different projects or different fields that you definitely like tapping into.
Yeah.
So before this one, Ron, let's go to the one that has like the 6 boxes that says like, drones and exactly.
Yeah, so we're kind of like technology, what do you call it? Agnostic. I don't really care what the technology is, and it's more about the problems you solve with it. Mm-hmm. We use them as a tool, and we challenge ourselves, I think with every project to learn more, to kind of bushwhack our way through to developing new design principles to be able to like leverage these technologies. And so we've worked on augmented reality for Lowe's and doing like interior layout kind of stuff, area learning, mapping, that kind of. We worked on drones with Precision Hawk for agriculture, construction, all the analytics and everything that's associated with that.
Good. Yeah.
And we take this kind of like broad view, and think about that whole kind of customer journey. What does it look like right now? And then what do we expect it to look like 5 to 10 years out?
How hard is it actually right now for a farmer to have a aerial view perspective of their land and what's going on their land?
Yeah. And you find in this process, you meet a lot of amazing people, and you find out, farmers don't really care about hardware. They don't really care about flying the drones. They just want to get the data and figure out how to, optimize their yield and do, predictive analytics and figure out where to put pesticide and fertilizer and all that. That's the outcome. And that future casting process, I don't actually know that we can speak to what the results of that were, but there's ways to do it where you're automating the whole thing and you don't have to interact with it.
So here you guys are covering these, very exponential technology futures, and like you're saying, you're having a really deep conversation with the people that are experiencing the exponential technology. It's kind of approaching their industry, and you're asking them, how can we design a future that works really well for you?
Exactly. That's a really good point. Is like, often a lot of foresight exercises don't work with the people who would be impacted by them. So you want to work with, we were talking with Utopia Cities, and their whole mission is how do we use slums, I'm going to mess it up, but it's like looking to slums for inspiration and challenging us to think about how can we use sort of the ad hoc behavior of how they problem solve within slums to inform how we design future cities. And so we did this future casting session with people Skyping in from bless you, from
Can you stop that?
Stop sneezing. If only it was contagious and we all sneezed.
Yeah.
One person sneezed.
But the interesting thing was, actually having some people from the favelas, the slums in Rio de Janeiro, and hearing about their challenges and how they make decisions. And there's kind of like only 2 paths that you go if you're in that scenario, where it's like really easy to, which is become a soccer or football player or, join a drug cartel. There's just no other options.
That's it.
But you're going through this process, whether it be a farmer or somebody living in a favela. You want to make sure that they are bought into that future happening. And it's something that they can engage with and that they're excited about.
And you're co-creating the future, so like you can ask them directly. So what are the top 4 problems that you're facing in that environment? So in the slums, is it crime, education, security, education? Like, what are those aspects?
Yeah.
I think what's fun about this process too is like we're taking a long-sighted view, so we can kind of ask these provocations, like, what if the most dangerous slum in the world was the safest city in the world in 10 years? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, how would that look?
That
That's good
moonshot
stuff.
statement.
Moonshot statements.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the industries, long-term thinking, asking really thought-provoking questions, getting the people on board with that future, having conversations about that, building that community. Okay, very action-oriented, very moonshot-oriented. So Ron, hit us with the next slide. I want to show. Okay, now you guys, this is a little prefacing kind of your methodology by talking about future casting. Future casting for me sounds a lot like future authoring. Future authoring is this like psychology technique, kind of like this career-driven technique.
Awesome.
Yeah, where you just say, in a year I want to have achieved these goals, in 5 I want to have achieved this, in 10, etc.
Yeah.
So the idea of future casting, describe a moonshot and tell a story about its impact on our society. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's, there's a lot of methodologies and, you can apply it to your life or your company or whatever kind of project you're working on. But I think what they all have in common is really creating this space to suspend disbelief and really think through, be intentional about what that vision is going to be. And so that future casting for us is like looking 5 to 10 years out, sometimes a little bit longer, and unpacking what that main concept's impact on our society or how we interact and live as humans might be. And narrative is like a really good tool for doing that, as we've seen by, sci-fi inspiring countless entrepreneurs. Like most people are, most of the entrepreneurs we've worked with have been inspired by some sort of science fiction or some kind of story. So the idea is like, using that as a tool and that we can wield. Then I think the challenge with this, we were talking about this before, is like how do you connect it to short-term actions, and that's kind of the part of the process, or what I've seen in Foresight is lacking.
Yeah.
There's this, there hasn't really been a good connection between like the big vision and. It's very hard, It
is. It's super hard.
And it's kind of daunting, So we've been honing that process. We call it retrocasting. There's a lot of different names for it. It's essentially like you build your vision, your story about your intended impact on society, and then identifying like what are the big roadblocks to that happening. So you kind of, you got your idealistic hat on to get your vision and, kind of build that simulation of success there. And then, you got to take that hat off, put on your devil's advocate hat on. And that's when you start like shooting down the idea and figuring out like, okay, where's all our failure points? How many launches of the shuttle do we need to do?
Let's do this. Let's break this one down. So your moonshot is the moon, your future authoring, your future casting, yourself getting to the moon, and then you're sort of retrocasting in a realistic way of understanding what are the impediments, how are you going to have the short-term goals of actually getting there. And so, okay, so this is a really good methodology and ideology, and it also kind of gets people ready for where a technology like, we'll get to a couple of these, but genetic engineering or neurotechnology and brain-computer interfaces, it's like there's millions of different paths that these technologies go down. So how do you highlight these important ones and get people to look at where we are today and have these hard conversations about what's it going to take to get to these more ideal futures rather than the dark ones? Because there is an actual path to get to the bright ones, and you got to follow the path to get to the bright ones. You can't just say I have hope.
It's interesting, like growing up, and taking in a lot of dystopian futures. Like it's very easy to say like what we don't want, and it's good to say like you want to know what the what is the opposite of your goal? You want to know that so you can steer clear of it.
Yep.
And it's much harder to define what is ideal and where you want to shoot for. And I think that's the fun part of this process is we're actually getting a chance to do that. And it's difficult. That's why people don't do it. It's like, it's easy to see like, oh, totalitarian dictatorships, like, oh, that's obviously something we don't want. But what is the ideal society beyond what we currently have?
It's not something you do in your everyday.
Yeah.
You don't really get a lot of opportunities to sort of reframe. Especially in corporate. We work with a lot of corporate skunk works and things like that, and they're operating quarter to quarter. Some corporate skunk works are working, but most of them are like kind of quarter to quarter.
It has to become a habit. This process of really future casting your own life and society, and really thinking about that on a frequent basis about what actions and behaviors you want to take.
And it's a discussion too, so part of it's being multidisciplinary, and when you look at that, you want people in the room who have different viewpoints and like real different viewpoints, different ideas that they're holding, and people who are going to be affected by it. So the people who are maybe powerless in the situation. So say there's autonomous trucks are going to wipe out 40 million jobs.
Let's do that. Let's jump to that graphic before we get to the methodology. So we'll get back to the methodology. Let's go to the next one, the next graphic, and we'll come back to the methodology, Ron. So come back to this question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like that's one thing that's really interesting to look at, and it's really valuable for like.
What will the 40 million workers soon to be displaced by autonomous trucks do to maintain their quality of life?
Exactly. And one thing that's important to look at is like these people who are.
This is worldwide. Sorry, worldwide's 40 million. U.S. is only like 3 or so.
It's the U.S. It's
crazy.
That's the trucking industry, so it includes trucking.
It employs. This is counting
logistics.
like managers, accountants, like logistics, like that whole infrastructure.
Wait a second. Wait a second. That's not worldwide.
It's crazy.
It's not.
No way. Because I thought there were only about 3 million or so taxi and truck drivers, but then there's 37.
I think this is looking at like the whole shipping industry. It's probably looking at like even the flights and planes and like delivery
support structure.
That makes sense.
So if you're an accountant or like
that's like UPS trucks and flights and sea trade and all these because there's a lot of pieces that go into that puzzle.
Yeah.
Sure.
You should probably reframe that to like the logistics of like delivery.
Right.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
But it's the part of what I find really exciting about this process is you're taking a look at the people that are going to be the most affected by this exponential technology or your proposed idea, and giving them a voice through the story. So it's giving power to the powerless, basically. Yeah. And that's
power to the people.
Exactly.
Power to the people.
Exactly.
To the power.
And that's key in bringing them into the discussion, and I think that's. Part of I think that stories are a way to frame our discussion and to get us to start thinking about these things before they happen. I think humans for 300,000 years, like oral history, like we've been telling stories to each other, and part of it is to have a dialectic and discuss ideas before we take action, or to discover like what's the ideal future or ideal people, like who do we want to be, how do we want to emulate each other. And I think that there was I think it was Stephen King who said like stories are basically a way, like if you write a story, it's basically telepathy between the author and the reader. And that telepathy, it doesn't care about the temporal line. It's like it's across time. It's a timeless discussion that you're having with the author, and you can bring that into the discussion.
So I like how you said you're giving power to people by posing this question. So we love the power of quality questions, of really thought-provoking questions, and so
it's all about framing,
And so you're framing this question to the masses of people that are going to need to be retraining in order to have some sort of a life that has meaning and purpose outside of what they are doing today, which is working in this logistics industry. So, and this is one of many questions that you ask, and we have other questions that we want to show.
I can frame this up a little bit. So, we have a publication called Futures, and these are all focused on areas that we're really passionate about and think will impact society in a lot of different ways. and it's a tool for facilitating conversations.
Excuse me.
So we host events and read these sci-fi stories, and we can talk about that in a bit. And this one was looking at what happens with displacement, autonomous vehicles, autonomous trucks. I think it was like a few weeks before Tesla announced their electric truck coming out and everything.
Yep.
Like, oh my God, amazing.
I like that. So you have the events that and the
We're always like
newsletter
6 months ahead.
that are part of Futures.
Yeah.
There is the series and the
Yeah.
newsletter, and you
Yeah,
can sign up for that on dxlabs.co.
Just join the newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Links in the bio.
And so this story really explored if the workers are displaced, basically, how do they maintain their quality of life? And we explored kind of two scenarios in this courtroom case. There was like a class action lawsuit by the truckers who wanted to basically get paid for being out of work for about a year to find, and we explored like, do you actually have time to like retrain, find another job? And we're kind of like telling the story through the lens of the, I think it was the CEO of the autonomous truck company. And so we created this simulator, and it ended up like the private company basically formed a program to be able to take care of the displaced workers for a certain period of time, kind of like the robot tax, that Bill Gates came up with. Yeah. And so we published this. It was on, I think it was on the first page of Reddit, for a bit. And we actually had some truckers comment on this and be like, if policy, rolled out like, X, Y, Z, I would actually be okay with this because of all this other stuff. And I was like, I'm realizing like this could be a social prototype. Like people coming back, and if I'm Uber getting into autonomous vehicles or entering into these automated logistical solutions,
they have to replace the millions of people. It's not their necessarily responsibility, but if you do care about this corporate social responsibility, if you actually have a heart, which you have to. So then the whole essence of it is then if you are building the autonomous vehicles, the ones that are going to be replacing the millions of people that are driving the cars right now, then what is Uber's plan then to help retrain people? And then that is kind of like this thread of conversation. Look, we just came up with this one solution. And there's millions of these.
So many potential futures.
Futures.
I think that's something that what I'm excited in how it informs regulation, governance, like policy, because like we worked on a drone project for it was a drone traffic management system, and this was like 4 or 5 years ago, where the FAA you just didn't have any policy around like, can you fly in manned aviation, and how do these systems interact and everything. And so we did our futurecast, retrocast, identified like you don't really have a way to create a network for all the drones track location. The FAA didn't have a way to plug in and monitor that and how it interacts with the flight space. So we built a prototype of this. You like duct tape cell phone to a drone. Back in the day, they didn't really have like great GPS or anything like that. And we made these collision avoidance systems around trees. And I remember my brother Darren was working on the product, and we were flying full speed into these trees, and we would smash them like right in there.
You can't say that we didn't hurt any trees. No trees were harmed.
No trees were harmed
in the process.
So let's go through your methodology, because I want to get through a couple things before we get to some of the pressing issues that I want to discuss with you as well. Ron, go back to the methodology quick. So, okay, I like this methodology. I think it's really important to as like a breakdown of how to address the different futures. So, okay, who are we designing for, and what are their biggest problems? Okay, that's under discover. That's what we were talking about earlier with the farmer and actually understanding the farmer, their top 4 problems.
It's kind of like digging into the current day problem space, understanding current solution paths. Are there any duct tape solutions? What's that customer journey look like? Who's experiencing the problem? Design thinking methodologies are really good at kind of unpacking what the problem space looks
the
like
design
initially.
thinking methodologies, and then you're framing the challenge in a way that's ambitious and achievable. So again, it's very moonshot driven. You're not doing the Band-Aid one. You're doing the one that's like, what would this look like if all your problems were solved maximally? And then how do we achieve those goals along the way?
Yeah, the moonshot portion is probably the hardest one to get we're teaching a class at CCA and kind of teaching
Oh,
students
you are?
how to do
Cool.
this.
We love CCA.
It's,
yeah.
it's so
good.
rad. Yeah, I
Which
love it.
class?
It's called Designing at the Edges of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you
I'm
guys
like, I want
Wanna be on
to
that
teach
edge.
something that like I would sign up for in university.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some criteria for a great moonshot statement that Tom Khalil, who's the
We love Tom Khalil. Yeah.
technology advisor to
Yeah.
Obama, he
Yeah.
launched a Moonshot Initiative. He does a great TED Talk on it. It's
Yep.
ambitious but achievable. Some other criteria, it's like a catalyst for creating social action. Because to tackle a lot of these big problems, you need a lot of stakeholders to kind of come together to make it
Totally,
happen.
and you need to
Yeah.
inspire, and then here's like kind of like the whole future and retrocast side of things, like towards. I like how
Yeah.
you're teaching this as a class because it totally makes sense as a breakdown, as a good, really solid methodology.
Yeah.
So how do you tell the story? How do you get people excited about it? How do you make it? How do you set up? What are the roadblocks? How do you get there? So. This is good. I'm glad that we showed it. I think it's a good template for other people to use. They print it out,
Yeah.
print it out and think about it, digitally fill it in on, any PDF filler software or on Sketch, and just go and execute, build, create. We always talk
Crayons?
about that on the show.
You can use crayons too.
You can use
my
crayons
favorite
or
tool.
I
markers.
love crayons.
Yeah. Get back that colored pencils. Got to bring back
Whatever you want,
that
yeah.
spirit from that youth. Oh my gosh.
And this is something that's like we're testing it in all these different environments. We're testing it in like urban planning, city design, with startups, corporate accelerators. Now we're trying it, doing it in university context. And we're kind of like honing this process every time. And we always find like one little area where like, oh yeah, we could frame this a little better. So if you guys print this out, you got feedback, definitely like hit us up.
Yeah.
And let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, Lance and Matt at dxlabs.co, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
So just find them on the interwebs on that email exchange and send them your thoughts. Okay, let's go on to the other. Let's go on to. We had the AI autonomous vehicle car example. We were talking a little bit about governance as well. I want to get to some of the other ones. Ron, let's hit to the next one. Where?
We need
Future
an
of
AI.
blue books. It's all good.
All right.
It's very
There we go.
dramatic.
Nice.
So, okay. Just stand across, just panned across. Get us that full shot.
So part of like the
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Cool. That
So,
works.
Ron, you want to fix this up for us as we talk about it? It's a little
So we
it's a little whack.
We joked about using crayons, and
Yeah.
one thing that we've noticed is when we do these workshops, a lot of times you get a multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary team. You have engineers, managers, you have people who are psychologists and accountants or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to draw, and I don't want to ideate, And
Damn.
the thing is, like,
intense.
it really doesn't matter your skill level. If you draw a little icon or a little graphic, anything that helps you look at the board and be able to associate that with a concept, it makes the process a lot easier to handle.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of
Visualize,
drawing
yeah.
stick figures. It's okay. No one's going to judge you. You need to be in a judgeless environment.
Yes.
And that's a cool stick figure. I see what he's doing.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
agree with you there.
Yeah.
You got to be able to just
let it go
create it. Yeah, create, let
create.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about getting ideas tangible so that
Mm-hmm.
you can see them and react to them. And everyone has their own, ways of doing that. Some people tell
Right.
stories. Some people get it visual, whatever it might be. Yeah, that's something we encourage. It's like creative confidence.
It's part of the reason for the stories and for the concepts that we do that are paired with each story. We want to basically get it as concrete as possible so that people have empathy and can see themselves in that future and then decide for
Yes.
themselves, do I want that or not?
Yeah.
Yes. So you're really hitting the emotional center of the heart and getting people to think
Yeah.
themselves with the foresight. So, okay, these are the really good questions as well that, we like asking. How could brain-machine interfaces be leveraged for political gain? So again, you're really pushing people to get that hey, there is some shit going on right now in your world, which you know with Cambridge Analytica and everything else that's been going on. So what's going to happen with the future of psychometrics and deep fakes and all this stuff? And if you can really press people to get that, like a company like Neuralink, even though they are great in many ways, could also at any moment decide that they have control of your mind.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler
You gotta
alert.
read the story. It gets good.
Yeah. I mean,
It gets,
You guys are funny. You laugh. Yeah.
they could control our minds.
Guess what? Never mind.
We're already
I want to know where that
Yeah,
was going.
guess what? It's already happening.
we're
Right?
already the thoughts of an AI right now.
Yeah.
We're the
I mean,
dream
I think
of
the
an AI.
big question for this exploration was really if you could, quote unquote, improve anything about your consciousness, whether that be through a brain, computer interface, or genetic engineering, or there's so many ways to alter our consciousness.
Yeah.
Would you want to be able to, take out fear reactions, or how our amygdala operates in certain scenarios where it just doesn't make any sense because we're not scared monkeys in the forest anymore. There's a lot of things that our brain kind of evolutionarily just doesn't make sense right now. So this
I'm gonna have to argue with you.
Oh yeah.
Fear? I think that's where it is. Like you bring up those questions, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, if we took out fear, then what's our impetus to improve our world? You know?
Totally.
And I think fear is one of those things that helps us create a more perfect society, because we fear scarcity, we fear loss, we fear not having. And so, there's all these like you said, like there's all these sort of externalities or adjacent things that might be related to how fear plays a role in our consciousness. So when we mess with our consciousness, I mean, do we need to fully understand how our brain works first before this step happens?
And you're thinking about the repercussions in advance, which is really important.
We're modifying stuff that we don't understand fully, and the brain definitely falls within that category. But this was a story about a politician who was modifying things about his brain that would, get him more votes, like basically, heighten his emotional intelligence, be able to read the nuances of public reaction, and know kind of like what to say.
It is very intense.
It's a good ending. I don't want to give a spoiler alert or anything.
There's an aspect to it. Again, we sort of talked about having the technology be a character in the story, and our main character that we choose and the technology being foils to each other. And in this case, the main character is this politician who's sort of stuck in his old ways of how politics used to work, and he's faced with this new era of politicians who they're all powered by AI or brain machine interfaces. They're already linked into the AI and being super powered. So he needs to decide, like, what do I do to compete? Like, and does he go with it? And the thing is, he's very much against it. So we like to choose someone who's going to really test the premise of this technology. And so that's kind of the situation that we created for this
You guys
story.
are right there with Black Mirror.
Totally.
Yeah, super
Yeah,
inspiring.
that's really good. I like that. Maybe making some shorter video content is also a good idea, along with write-ups that you're making.
That would be fun.
This is good stuff. It can get people really, like you said, artificial infatuation.
My biggest thing with this sort of discussion, and we had a fireside chat for this, and we got experts on the panel, and my biggest question was like, if we could modify our brains, right? If we had this brain machine interface and we could modify our brains, at what age do we do that? Is it 12-year-olds deciding their ideal version of who they want to be? And now think about yourself when you were 12. Do you want 12-year-old version of you to decide how you will be, like how your brain's going to form for the rest of your adult life?
5 years ago version of
Yeah, exactly.
consciousness.
It's scary. Like when you don't understand your subconscious and your deep conscious motivations, and you're playing around with it.
Well, being able to take someone that is birthed into the world and give them access to all information ever, and then have them be able to figure out what they care about within that information, and then what information they would.
It doesn't work that way. That's why we're all in this together. Not one person can have all the information in the world. Get over that.
Yeah, well,
we're all in this together.
With brain-computer interfaces,
we're all
it might
smart
change.
in different areas.
It might change a lot.
I'm
with
smart,
brain-computer.
not dumb, like everybody says. I'm smart and I want respect.
So it will change though over time, even though that is what it's like right now. It will change over time, and
I think he brings up a
opportunities.
good point about disparity. And if
Totally.
It's not
I was just about to
evenly-
say that the even distribution of
Yeah.
this as well.
Right.
So who is getting access to all the information at what time are they getting access to it? How much does that cost? How much when is it going to be available to those that are middle class or low or poor?
Yeah.
All these types of questions are quite important.
Just think about if there's like 300-400 Elon Musks out there, everyone has this advantage. The disparity will be insane. Like it will be, it will only heighten the upper class, lower class, and that social mobility. That's what I'm worried about. Is
Fuck
just,
the poor.
How's everybody?
The unfortunate truth is that it is extremely difficult to figure out how to funnel resources down the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And unless we figure out how to do that, we are approaching a generation of quite the largest disparity. Yeah. So let's show the next guy, Ron.
The next guy?
The next image. The next guy. The next image.
Look at this guy.
Look at this guy.
Look at this guy.
This guy. Look at this girl. Look at this girl.
So speaking of, what if
that thing?
what if
Oh yeah, this
what
is
if-
a fun one.
How might genetic engineering and artificial wombs affect our society? You just did an event on this, which
Right.
is awesome. And this is intense stuff. I mean, this is genetic engineering of intelligence, metabolism, strength, height, eradicating disease,
Yeah.
women, artificial wombs, you can gestation happening outside of the womb.
Yeah, there's kind of there's two concepts in here, artificial wombs. That one's really interesting. Not a lot of people think about it. I didn't really think about it other than the sheep that was born inside of a bag, and had all the
bag
fluid
sheep.
and stuff. A bag sheep, yeah. But when you think about it, it was really interesting because the author, has 2 kids, and she'd been through the magic of giving birth and really connecting your baby and all that kind of stuff. And then one conversation she's kind of like, I don't really want to do that again. It's like really painful and dangerous, and you look at child mortality,
Yep.
and all the mothers that unfortunately die, and it's one of the metrics of for developing countries is your child mortality rate. Like people have to have 6 or 7 kids because 2 or 3 of them might pass away. So that's why you have more kids. And the idea behind artificial wombs is what if you had the ability to control temperature, stimulation, audio, vibration, all and
Measure all the
create
biometrics dynamically.
create the perfect sort of biometric, environment for it to develop, specifically matched to your DNA and everything, and it kind of, there's definitely concerns about will the mother be as attached to a baby that doesn't connect with her this way. There's a great discussion about that, and even polling the audience and asking how many people. Well, just think about
That's a good
the
question about the
role-
mother and nurture. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Ron's expression of disappointment.
I just have to be quiet. My mom didn't give 2 shits about me. You talk about, it's already happening. We're all in for a big surprise. I just want to let you
Ball's
know.
already
that. Genetic engineering. Let's take this animal planet and try to make at least one of them like us.
That's a good question about the mom and nurturing in the womb. What other good questions came up like that?
Well, think about the what it enables the female, the kind of male, female roles and childhood development. And if a mom is able to like work through that whole time, she hasn't taken maternity leave.
The whole 9 months,
Yeah.
she can
Yeah,
she can just jam. She can do what she
She
wants.
can do whatever she wants. Yeah, she could drink, smoke,
Jeez, those two as the first
any
ones. That's
guilt,
funny.
yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
He
That's
has
a
many
15 minutes.
muffins as you want.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The mom can continue being productive. She doesn't have to sacrifice her health, but at the same time, there's this like holy divine process of growing it inside of you. But then there's all of the incredible analysis that we can do in the dynamic analysis of the child's health and stuff, and the augmentations of it, how that's going.
And we had one of the guest speakers we had on the panel was she was concerned with this idea of getting rid of menstruation completely. So you get rid of that barrier, you get artificial wombs, and now you've leveled the playing field. You have an opportunity where the wage gap starts decreasing. Like that. All these things could affect a positive change in our society.
Damn, so you genetically engineer away menstruation so that you can just use wombs?
No, she has another method to do it with hormones, I think.
That would be pretty crazy to engineer away menstruation and
So
just moment to moment orgasm, just like trigger whenever you want, just like
gosh.
orgasm
I don't know if
buttons.
I'm sure
Super short
that
term.
would do pretty well. Yeah.
That's kind of what we do with the social media anyway. That's what it's like.
That's kind of what's happening with your dopamine. We've wired ourselves for that. Other things that kind of got brought up is the idea: what if Elon Musk? Maybe there weren't 500 Elon Musks with the empowered by brain-machine interfaces, but what if he just
Took
bought a bunch of
500
artificial wombs
eggs
and replicated himself?
and just filled them all with his semen and just
that
like
seems
that.
pretty kinky, but
Just all you got to do is get your semen across, 500 donor eggs, and then
there you go.
try
You've
and
got
find
an
eggs
army.
that are as diverse and intelligent as possible. And then how do you fund the
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan?
Yeah.
How do you fund? What about a woman? A woman would want to do that too. She'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
here's 500 of my eggs, and I want 500 kids.
I'd be down with fathering multiple children from multiple women from multiple cultures. I want a child I want a black baby, a Muslim baby, an Asian baby, a Jewish baby, every kind of baby possible. Teach all the brothers and sisters the languages of each other. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to afford that, and I want everybody to get along.
See, I love that. Like, that's you. One of the issues is we live in a culture where people are sort of becoming more tribalized, they're becoming more grouped, and so like
that helps with globalism. That helps with people understanding each other better.
Building empathy, but part of it is like there's a extremely weird moral question, ethical question that comes into play. Like, okay, who has the power to create these children and choosing the genetics of their children?
Totally.
And what kind are they going to make an ideal man, an ideal woman, an ideal person? And what does that ideal person look like? It's going to depend on that. So like we have this culture now where I think it's happening in social media where people are getting plastic surgery to look more like their Instagram filters, right?
They even donate that as a graduation gift in South Korea. I forgot.
Wow.
It's I forgot the word for it, but it's a surgery so that your eyes become more Americanized. Yeah.
In the future, you can just genetically engineer ears and look like a deer, like if
Yeah,
you
the
want to.
biomimicry, gene engineering, whatever you want. So, okay, so this has been really thought-provoking, and I'm really happy that you're asking. I'm serious, it's super thought-provoking, and really good that you're bringing these questions to the surface in both in live event settings as well as out to different companies and designing the futures and having people view them over and really think about them more, and just the moonshot vision and how to get there for everybody. I'm really happy that we now know each other. There's gonna be some good collabs that spur from this. We have some good events in mind to build. So, all right, let's ask you a couple questions on the way out that we like to ask our guests. Do you guys think we're alone in the cosmos?
For sure not.
Can you be more specific?
Do you think we're alone in the cosmos?
There's tardigrades floating out in space.
There's
like
what?
Tardigrades.
What is that?
They're little, what are they called? Water bears?
Are they on like comets and stuff?
I think they can like survive in
They're-
space.
they're like
I'm
one
sure
of the-
someone shot one of those into
Those
space.
little water
They
bears.
look like little
Yeah.
pigs. Yeah,
Yeah.
Or
They look like
bears.
little
yeah.
bears.
They're so
Yeah.
cute.
They got like
So you're
snouts.
talking. So okay. So you're talking
False
about
snouts.
not being alone because there's a little like microbe
Yeah,
thing.
I feel a connection between them.
Okay. What about what about? Do you think
Alien
other
life.
intelligent life has evolved that that's whatever way you want to imagine that, but
Was it
I
Drake's
feel
equation?
like sometimes we were seeded. You know.
you think we were seeded? Tell us about that theory.
I don't know. Like sometimes I
That's-
feel like that.
That's the plot of Prometheus.
I know. Like some.
You know
I'm not saying
panspermia,
some,
right?
Like ancient alien stuff that with the guy with the hair and stuff probably gonna start sounding like him.
You're not talking about panspermia though, right? Where it's like something collided with Mars and the life came from Mars to Earth.
Well, I just think there's
No, that's crazy. He's talking about like a higher life form planted us on purpose,
to
right?
figure something out.
Yeah.
Or just an asteroid coming from away from Earth and planting life on Earth in general. So
It's too there's too many coincidences.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can go down that rabbit hole for a while. Okay,
Alien rabbits.
how about we ask you guys, do you think that we're in a simulation?
I'm almost like, does it matter?
It's-
if we are.
Yeah, I don't.
I think our responsibility is to behave as if it's not. Like we
Yeah.
can take in so many inputs. Whether it is a simulation or not, we have no way of really figuring that out. So it's our responsibility to behave as if we're not.
Yeah.
But the likelihood, based off Nick Bostrom and the whole simulation theory, is pretty convincing that we are.
I think that there's almost a moral or ethical reason why we shouldn't think we're in a simulation. Because if you assume we're in a simulation, you kind of assume the deterministic version of the universe, where whatever you do doesn't really matter, and then it's easy to go from there to being just nihilistic about everything, and like life doesn't matter, and then you
curious how it would
then you go
affect
down to
your
like this weird path where I just don't care about any life.
Wind blows doesn't really matter
Exactly.
To me, to me. Bum, bum, bum.
I like your band. You need a little Conan band. Right?
Yeah, you guys should join the band. So I just want to
Play
a
the
quick
triangle.
offer for you guys, just on the opposite side of things. Regarding simulation theory, one of the reasons why we ask is because it expands people's minds to new dimensions of thinking, like in terms of how bright our star is, how close our planet is to the star, how long it took for evolution to occur here. Just calculating all these different variables across different solar systems and different, and so, for example, also sociologically, how we evolved here to have 7.5 billion people, where the countries are, how many people live in those countries, how many nuclear weapons there are, how close we are blowing each other up, all these variables. When you crunch them and you run another simulation, how would have Earth evolved if, the divine feminine energy took over Earth instead of the patriarchy, we had a matriarchy? What would that look like? So running these simulations can be fascinating. And so we don't know, and we think about, we ask it because we want people's minds to just be expanded to new ways.
There's a show in the late 2000s, Sliders. Was that the time? You remember Sliders? They like travel through a little portal. It had the guy who was Gimli.
yeah.
Okay. So basically that was it. Like they went to another portal and it was like 1950s, but now it was like it was totally reverse. It was like, okay, well, what if the women were in power? What if you're in a matrarchy? What if you're in a society that's there's a different kind of structure entirely?
That stuff's fascinating.
Yeah, and you gain empathy by looking at that. You gain more understanding.
That's a
of
good
behaviors.
futures overview. What would it look like if we switched to matriarchy? That's a good one. You should have a divine feminine panel on that.
I feel like it would solve a lot of problems.
It would solve a lot of problems. A lot of problems. But we would have some new. The interesting thing is it solve a lot of problems and
Probably new
create
problems.
problems as well.
We're all human, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna have human problems,
Last question. What do you guys think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Ooh, wow. Like aesthetically, or just like
Wherever you want to take that.
that's It's a big one to ask engineers and designers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a hard one. Yeah.
Beauty.
I'd say the
Beauty is the
moon.
most beautiful
I've been so
thing.
inspired by like, that Dear Moon project, and just think about how many artists and musicians and everything have been inspired by the moon.
Yeah.
And
Werewolves.
It's
Love it.
The Mayans, like it goes back thousands of years.
We got very lucky we got a moon. And
It's
a
so
moon
cool.
has changed a lot of
It gives
our
us a lot of
orbital
context,
dynamics and yeah.
It's
I-
beautiful.
That's a good one.
I'd say like the resiliency of like humans, of rational thought, like because we can be given all these indicators of something like, all these things that could make us super superstitious or scared, but like the fact that we can work past those and start finding the truth together, I think that's really important to me.
It's a good one.
Yeah, so I have like a view of that.
I like that one. Yeah, the resiliency of humans over time.
What do you think? I want to hear you.
My answer to the most beautiful thing in the world. I have not thought about the answer. It's very difficult.
incubating.
I'm the question asker.
Oh, okay.
I'm the question asker. One of my favorite answers is the collection of all consciousness. That was a pretty good one.
Oh wow.
That was a good answer. There have been so many good ones on the show. Oh yeah, I want to make sure this is a good photo of one of your events. Hopefully you'll be doing some more events on like the Divine Feminine or like that. That'd be so interesting if you guys chose
That
to
would
do
be
that.
rad, yeah.
We're doing a Women in Alliance event. Shout out September 28th. Check out our Women in Alliance event. That'll be very fun at WorkWise.
Who's going to be there,
At 7
Alan?
p.m. At 7 p.m., we will be featuring Mackenzie Slaughter, who is the CEO of Beyond Capital Markets. We'll be featuring Nicole Bradford, who is the Executive Director of the Transformative Technology Lab. And last but not least, we'll be featuring Mariana Senko, who is a principal at Coastal Ventures. It will be a fantastic and super thought-provoking panel discussion with very powerful women across a variety of subjects. And you may visit our website at simulationseries.com and scroll down about halfway down the page to find info and ticketing for the event. Perfect timing.
Amazing.
Amazing. You guys, thank you so much, Lance.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, man. This has been such a pleasure. I feel super inspired to continue the thought-provoking questions, talking about those futures, getting people excited about them, and doing that whole idea of future authoring. You guys call it future casting. I love that. Okay, thank you so much for coming on the show. dxlabs.co. Definitely go check them out, everyone. Go check them out. Also, if you guys had a good time, comment below with your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Join the community, join the conversations. Also, you already know it. Don't just consume, but go create, go and make things into the world, go and build, go and write, go and make video, go and start businesses, go and make, create. Thank you, Ron, our producer, director. Much love, everyone. Peace.